Damn.
Hi, it's proofSzilko. First of all, I want to thank you all for the support you gave me for my last two tips and tricks videos. Today's video will be the first episode of an upcoming series where I would analyze my gameplay and give you a better insight into my decisions. I usually do this exercise for myself because analyzing your own gameplay is very useful. You can learn from your mistakes and you can improve your skills. Of course, I will use some visual elements just to make my points more understandable. I hope you will find the video useful. If you did so, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more PUBG Xbox content if you're new here. So without any further ado, let's get started. Before landing, you should always try to gather as much visual information as possible. If you're not alone at the compound you landed, the first few minutes should only be about survival. Your top priority is to find a good weapon and immediately start to push the enemy. In my opinion, UMP is a perfect early weapon because it has a relatively fast rate of fire and a perfect iron sight. I knew that there are at least two enemies in my area, so after I found the weapon, I started to push the first one. For some reason, I don't understand, he decided to lay down on the floor in one corner of one room, so he was an easy kill. I wouldn't recommend laying down because in this case your movement is very limited and you'll have hard time to defend yourself or just run away from your attacker. And for the other guy, I heard that he was running towards me, he tried to catch me and I used a trick here. I started to run in one direction but immediately turned back and approached him from the other side. He wasn't 100% tricked, but for sure he was a bit confused, so I had an easier time to kill him. The other common mistake which I see players making is that when they took some damage from the zone or previous gunfights, they start to heal immediately as soon as they enter the new circle. And this is a mistake because most of the players die during the transition period. Because other players who are already in the zone, they just face towards the edge of the new circle and they wait for the new enemies. And when you arrive with a relatively lower health, it just takes one or two shots to take you down. So instead of stopping immediately, I decided to go further into the circle and heal myself laying down on the ground in a bush. And I also want to mention that after I healed myself, I didn't jump immediately back to the car. I took some time to, assess my surrounding and see if anybody else is watching me. Luckily, nobody was around me, so I jumped back to the car and hit the road. When deciding about where to go, I prefer moving towards the middle of the circle during mid-game because it has a relatively high chance to be in the next circle. And I also prefer medium-sized compounds. I don't like multiple buildings next to each other, but two of them is still okay. I decided to move to this location because it only had just the water from one side and I could have a great view of the transitioning players from the other side. Later in the game, there's a really high chance that all the buildings in the circle are already occupied, so I was really careful when I approached this building. I saw one player from my car, so I decided to go a little bit further, and since I had the 2x scope and the silencer for my AKM, I decided to engage him from distance. I wasn't sure about his intentions, but due to in-game physics, it's really hard to hit anybody in the water, so I decided to make him turn back. And while I was shooting at him, I used the common aiming tactic, which is when the enemy is within 100 meters from you and he or she is running sideways, you should aim like somebody else is running in front of him. If you can see the image on the screen now, you will know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's talk about how you should clear the buildings. Notice here that I wasn't sure if an enemy is inside the building, so instead of going into the house, I just opened the door and I moved sideways. There was an enemy inside, point shooting at the door, but I managed to get away. It's really hard to take out an enemy who is inside the building because if you go inside, you don't know where he is, but whoever is already inside, they just have to cover one or two doors maximum. So instead of going in, I tried to go around the house, but as I heard, he got out. So instead of going to the house to take him down, I decided to take cover at the nearby hills and try to take him out from distance. I managed to tag him multiple times, but I couldn't kill him. So due to the time push of the shrinking circle, I decided to take a car and head towards the next area. I picked the building and I managed to clear it. And this is where an interesting part comes, because you as a player should always be aware of your weaknesses and strengths. And one of my weaknesses is picking the stairs. I don't know what's the exact reason of it. I'm trying to get better in it, but at this time I have a gap to cover there. So instead of waiting by the stairs, I decided to jump out of the window and take cover by the edge of the island. It's a good spot because you have to cover only 180 degrees. As you can see it on the image, there was one player on my right, and since I had a silenced AKM with an 8x scope, I decided to take him down. After that, I saw one guy running towards the same spot I was holding. I managed to tag him multiple times. I hurt him pretty bad, but the guy who came to the building after me finished him and took the kill. But I took it as an advantage because I knew the window I was jumping out and he took his shot through the other window, so I could narrow down his position and predict the window he would peek from. I aimed there and I managed to headshot him. And this is the most interesting part, because whenever it's just a few of us left, I always wait for the remaining enemies to shoot each other. And this is how I exactly did in this situation as well. I waited them to kill each other, and I had the line of sight of the last player, so I just waited until he stopped, and this was my cue. I shot him and I managed to win the chicken dinner eventually. So that was it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. This was the first part of my upcoming series. In this series I will go through some of my wins and I try to analyze them and give you a better insight into my decisions. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did so, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more PUBG videos like this. Bye bye.